better things to do tonight than die.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. For today's video, we're going to be checking out the Transformers Studio Series 86 Leader Class Springer, arguably the show's best G1 triple changing character and a really good looking figure. He is more or less a souped up version of the Transformers Siege Voyager, which I know for some may be the make or break, but when it does come to the overall design, I think this is likely to be the closest that we'll see to animation accuracy when it does come to the mainline. So as we check out the details, the brand new head sculpt most definitely is an improvement in comparison to that Transformers Siege version. The details are way closer to match the actual animation design, and to be fair, when it comes to the whole upper torso, this is looking amazing. The brand new shoulder design, the newly sculpted chest unit, and those fully articulated hands I think are looking sick. Although from the shin downwards, unfortunately everything you see here is a direct reuse from that previous Voyager. Now I guess you could say if something ain't broken, why fix it, but there are quite a few issues that I have with these that for a leader class figure I definitely would have liked to have seen ironed out. So the first one would be that the torso is super big and bulky. Unfortunately, those pin joints just ain't strong enough to withstand the weight. He definitely does have a tendency to lean backwards, and as we check out the back profile, from kind of the torso upwards, this guy's most definitely packing a punch. Surprisingly, pretty much spot on to the actual animation model, although once again, when it does come round to these legs, I just think they look awful. Now, they were fine when they were a part of a Voyager class release, but considering that this guy is now a leader class, I really don't think it would have been asking too much for them to have smacked on a brand new panel cover. They most definitely could have made use out of the hollow gaps we have here along the side, and honestly, I don't think it would have compromised the transformation in the slightest. So it is kind of a shame to see those most definitely slacking in comparison to the upper half, but overall, without any doubt at all, one of the best mainline versions of this character that I think we've ever seen, and definitely a big step up accuracy-wise in comparison to that Siege Voyager. Now, as we check out Springer's accessories, this is really where I'm going to ask the question if you guys think he is worth that leader class price point. So, to begin with, considering that these are on the same sprue as the legs, we do see the return of the original Voyager Siege Springer blasters, which to be fair, do look pretty wicked when combined with the helicopter mode. But when it comes to some brand new weapons, this guy's absolutely stacked. So to begin with, we get a brand new rotor blade which can transform into a full-blown sword. This looks sick when it comes to detail, and again is a big improvement in comparison to the blades that we did see first time round. There is also a supremely detailed animation accurate blaster, which I guess if you really wanted to, you could pair alongside Ultra Magnus to recreate maybe an animation error, but this looks sick when it comes to detail and is by far one of my favourite accessories out of the bunch. To pair alongside that, we also see the return of the sword, which Springer does use in the 86 movie in order to fend off against the Junkions. But easily the coolest out of the bunch would be the catapult missile, which caused for by far one of Springer's most iconic scenes in the movie, where he has better things to do tonight than die. And then finally, arguably the most random accessory out of the bunch, we do see the Wrecker's Hammer, which appears to be an almost direct carryover of the design that we saw as part of the Wreck and Rule subline. Now, at least to myself, this just screams that Hasbro and Takara Tomy were trying to pad this guy out with as many accessories as possible to justify that leader class price point, because this really is a useless accessory. He never actually used this in the animation, but I guess in its defense, it has been really nicely detailed. I'm a big fan of the dings and dents that you can see scattered around it, although it is a bit of a shame that at the very least they didn't actually paint the insignia in the center. Instead, they just left the cutout, which I definitely do think is a bit lazy. And for whatever reason, if any of those weapons fell him, then Springer does have one last trick up his sleeve. So if you spin the forearm around and begin transforming this bad boy, check out what is hidden on the inside. There is a tiny flip out wrist mounted blaster, which is to recreate a scene which I believe lasted about 2 seconds in the 1986 movie, where the Autobots are outnumbered by the Decepticons and Springer issues a fatal blast with this bad boy. I thought this was such a deep dive and a pretty wicked feature to integrate into this guy. Turning to Springer's articulation, surprisingly this guy is absolutely stacked. To begin with, the head is on a ball joint, although if you use the official range, unfortunately it's kind of limited. So what I like to do is take that ball joint and kind of push the faceplate here backwards ever so slightly, which definitely does allow for a way better range. You can kind of get that tilting side to side, looking down, looking upwards, so I would definitely recommend to do that. When it comes here to the shoulders, these can move forwards, they can move backwards. Despite the brand new shoulder design, it doesn't in any way compromise the outwards range, which I thought was pretty cool. ankle. There is then an elbow swivel, an elbow bend. The wrist can rotate, considering that this time round he has now joined the open hand gang. You can totally open and close the four fingers, which I thought was awesome. The waist can rotate all the way around. The hips can kick forwards roughly to that far. Surprisingly back almost as far, which I thought was pretty sweet. They can then also kick there out to the side. The thigh can rotate all the way around. Not due to transformation, he is packing a supreme knee bend. I mean, that is super dynamic. And then finally, when it does come down here to the ankles, despite the issues that I have in regards to these being a little loose, you can totally get this rocking forwards, rocking backwards, and then finally rocking out to the side. So overall, when it does come to posability, a super dynamic figure, and there are so many poses that you are able to recreate from the original 86 movie, which I won't lie guys, make this easily one of the most badass springers that I think we've so far seen to date. But as I'm sure you guys all know by now, to see what this guy is truly capable of, now let's put him through the pose test. Springing our way through some robot mode comparisons, first up we are whacking out the original Transformers Siege Voyager class Springer, the figure that this brand new Studio Series version is based on. Now when it comes to visual differences from the front, the head, the shoulders, the chest unit, the biceps, the articulated hands, the skirt armor and the thighs are completely brand new. But when it does come to that internal core engineering, the transformation, I will be honest guys and say that they are pretty much the same. So it does beg the question, what exactly makes this here a leader class in comparison to what was originally a Voyager class? The only thing that I can think of is that maybe it's the accessories, and if that is the case, then honestly guys, with the exception of that pretty sweet animation accurate blaster, I really could have done without the rest. So for those of you who already own the amazing Voyager class release, I'm gonna be honest guys, I don't really think this is worth almost double the price point. Although as we begin to whack out some more recent triple changing Transformers, here we have the Legacy United Sandstorm. These two are pretty much on par with each other, so it really does beg the question why first time round back in the Siege days, Hasbro were able to release Springer as a Voyager class, but now when it comes around here to 2024, they have to release him as a leader class. Here is how he stacks up against a Transformers Siege triple changing leader class. We have Astro Train. Now, firing through some general comparisons, first up we have the Commander class Rodimus Prime, the myth, the legend that is Earthrise Optimus Prime, Voyager class Junkion Wreck-Gar, 86 movie Autobot Blaster, the battle damaged Ironhide, the amazing Voyager class Hot Rod, Deluxe class Perceptor, arguably the most important comparison, we now have Deluxe class RC. Last but by no means least, we have the soon to be replaced Netflix Bumblebee. Now, springing into this guy's transformation for the first step, you're going to take a hold of the head sculpt and spin that sucker all the way around until the back is now facing the front. We can then disconnect the neck away from the torso and then take the chest piece and also begin to bring this here downwards. Now, stored on the inside is one gaping hole that the entire head is going to very nicely slide inside. Once that's complete, we can then turn our attention around here to the back. You're going to take the entire back panel and begin to drop that down slightly, because now we're going to take a hold of the shoulder joint and begin to extend that there upwards. Once you reach this point, we can then make use out of these hinge joints, so let's slide those suckers there backwards, and stored on the inside of the shoulder is a big meaty slot which is then going to slide into that tab. So we're going to bring the shoulder joint here backwards exactly like that. We're then going to snap that into place, then we're going to take the underside of the arm and also attach that into place. We're going to come around here to this side and do exactly the same. So take a hold of the shoulder, begin to angle that there upwards, make use out of these joints and begin to extend those there backwards. Once again, make note that that tab has to slide into the underside of the shoulder pad. So begin to angle this here upwards, take that shoulder pad and begin to slide this backwards until eventually this also does snap there into place. We can now take the underside of the arm and once more snap that into that big meaty tab exactly like that. Now we're going to spin around here to the front. So what you're going to do here is begin to grab a hold of the shoulders, angle them here downwards to detach them away from the chest unit, and then we're going to extend them here outwards. So let's do the same here for this side, angle them here downwards and begin to extend them there outwards. Now that's complete, we can then come back to the chest unit. This is then going to completely detach itself away from its original configuration until we are now left with something which should be looking like this. We can then make use out of these hinge joints and begin to slide these here outwards. You're then going to take the head and yet again slide it inside inside another gaping void until this does snap there into place. We can then slide this entire section here up exactly like that. Then for the next step, we are now going to come down here to the legs. So you're then going to take the foot design, you're going to angle these here downwards exactly like that. Then for the next step, we're going to take the outer leg panel, begin to pop that bad boy open until you can then come inside, take the fin and begin to flip that sucker there outwards. We can then snap that section there into place, and let's now do the same here for this side. So angle this sucker here downwards, take a hold of the fin and begin to flip that bad boy there forwards, snap that section there into place. Now what you're going to do is come here to the top of this guy. So there is a pretty mighty double hinge joint that we're now going to try our best to shift backwards. So in order to do this, take a hold of the hips, then take a hold of this and begin to angle that backwards, and then what you're going to do is slide this into place until eventually it does very nicely snap there into place exactly like that. Now that's complete, we can then take the backpack, hinge that upwards, because now what you're going to do is separate the shin away from the thigh. So to do this, you are pretty much going to want to begin to push them in opposite directions to each other until eventually this can flip completely around exactly like that. Now that's complete, what you're then going to do is come up here to the top. We're now going to take the heel spur and slide that through this cutout exactly like that. We're now going to come around here to this side and do the same. So once again, push the thigh, push the shin in opposite directions to each other. We can now bring this here all the way downwards like that. Then what you're going to do is make sure that heel spur eventually slides into that cutout. We're now going to spin around here to the underside and directly combine these bad boys exactly down the middle. With that now complete, we can then come here to the backpack, begin to slide that backwards until this also does snap there into place. And then finally, when it comes here to the shoulders, this tab is going to slide into that slot there. So angle this here upwards. At the very same time, this tab is then going to slide into that slot. So make sure that also snaps into place. And then what you have to do is snap the very tip into place until this does actually click. So let's do the same here for this side. Angle that sucker there upwards. Again, make sure that the inside part of the arm also attaches into that tab. And then finally snap the very tip into place exactly like that until Springer is now fully transformed into his vehicle mode. Racing his way through the battlefield of Autobot City, now we have Springer fully transformed into his Cybertronian vehicle form. Now to be fair, I already thought this was spot on as it was, so to see some of the improvements, especially when it comes here to the front end, this now looks near enough dead on to the actual animated model. I'm also really digging the brand new intakes which we have here along the side. That backpack definitely does leaps and bounds when it comes here to the vehicle form, and even as we spin him around here to the back, he is totally packing an inbuilt booster. So along with those blast effect ports, I should imagine we'll now have no issues in turbocharging through that battlefield. The only thing which I can't say that I'm crazy about would be the mismatched wheels. Unfortunately, the back set are not pinned on unlike the front set, and there definitely is a mismatch when it comes to the overall design, which for a leader class figure, I do think is a bit of a shame. You know, at the very least, it would have been awesome had these also been fully decked out with rubber tyres, much like we saw from the Legacy United Sandstorm. But in his defense, he doesn't have any issues in quite literally springing through that battlefield, and you can totally fully deck him out front side to back with all of those accessories, including the catapult missile. And I won't lie to you guys, he definitely does appear to be an absolute unit. So, comparison time when it comes around to the land-based vehicle form. On the right-hand side, again, we have the Transformers Siege Voyager class Springer. So, to be fair, not too many visible differences. You know, whilst this one still is more animation accurate, I'm not seeing a big change. But in its defense, this really wasn't the alt mode that I think needed the improvements. Here is how he stacks up against the Transformers Legacy Leader class Sandstorm. So, definitely a pretty decent size up between the two. The Transformers Siege Leader class Triple Changing Astro Train, which when it comes to an overall triple changer, I think is slightly more effective, and it's mainly just due to his design. You know, whenever Springer would transform in the original G1 show, despite there being some differences between the vehicle form and the helicopter, to be fair, it was pretty much that land-based alt form just with a pair of propeller blades slapped on top. So this is why I think in comparison, this definitely, at least to myself, seems way more deserving of that leader class price point. Here is how he stacks up against the absolute GOAT. We have the Earthrise Optimus Prime, so definitely a decent size when it does come round to the vehicle mode. And finally, we are whacking out the Earthrise Netflix Bumblebee. Gonna be really interesting to see how that upcoming Studio Series 86 Bumblebee stacks up in comparison. So, transformation time into Springer's third and final mode. For the first step, we're going to come here to the intakes and begin to snap these here downwards. Then for the next step, you're going to take the entire backpack and begin to detach this away from the back end of the vehicle until you are now left with something which should be looking like this. We're then going to spin around here to the side. You're going to take a hold of the shoulder joint and begin to angle that sucker there outwards. Then for the next step, we're now going to make use of the elbow bend and begin to bend this here forwards. Once you reach to this point, we can then spin here to the underside, take a hold of the wing and begin to fold that forwards. Now what you're going to do is make use out of this slider joint. So extend this here upwards and begin to rotate that there all the way around. Once complete, we can then make use out of the elbow joint and once more reset this into its original configuration until you are now left with something which should be looking like this. Let's now do the same here for this side. So angle that bad boy there outwards, spin around here to the side, totally make use out of that elbow bend. We're then going to take a hold of the wing, begin to extend that outwards, and then make use out of that slider joint and extend that sucker here all the way up, exactly like that. We can now spin this here all the way around, and once again, reset the elbow into its original configuration, so that right now you should be left with two arms which are looking exactly like this. Now what we're going to do is come down here to the back part of the vehicle. You are going to begin to make use out of those hip joints, so let's bring those suckers there all the way downwards. Now what we're going to do is split this here directly in the middle by applying pressure to the center, so hopefully they should detach with no issue at all. With that now complete, we are then going to completely flip the leg joint all the way around, much like we did previously, until this does specifically snap there into place. So let's now do the same here for this side, detach that sucker and spin it here all the way around. Now what you'll want to do is rotate around here at the thigh joint, so let's do the same here for this side, rotate that there all the way around. Now we're going to take the foot and begin to slide this here along the side of the leg. Once that's complete, we can then detach this panel and begin to angle it here outwards. That should then hopefully allow for enough clearance for us to then come to the inside and begin to swing this sucker here all the way backwards. So let's now do the same on the opposite side, take a hold of the foot and swing this here all the way around to the outside part of the leg. We can then begin to detach this and angle this here outwards, which again hopefully should allow for enough clearance for us to make use out of this hinge joint and also begin to bring that sucker backwards. Now that you've reached to this point, we're now going to come here to the hips. So you're going to want to take a hold of the front end of the vehicle and pretty much begin to pull these here backwards until the hips detach away from the butt plate. So let's now do the same here for this side, detach that sucker exactly like that. Now what we're going to do is proceed to combine these bad boys directly down the middle until you are now left with something which should be looking like this. We can then take a hold of the very tip and begin to pinch that bad boy there into place. Then what you're going to want to do is come here to these sections and begin to slide these here forwards until they do specifically snap into place. So right now the helicopter mode should be looking something along the lines of this. Then for the next step, we're going to come back up here to the shoulders. We're going to begin to angle these suckers here downwards. Then what we're going to do is spin around here to the underside. So we're now going to compress this here all the way inside. Now a point of connection that you must make sure you do would be this tab sliding there into that slot. So begin to compress this upwards until that does snap there into place. Spin around here to the back and once again do the same. So detach the shoulder away from the front end of the vehicle mode, flip here all the way around to the underside, make sure that you are yet again compressing those shoulder joints there inwards and then proceed to snap that forearm into place. Then for the next step, we can come here to the backpack and begin to completely snap that into place, and that is the core transformation of the helicopter mode now fully complete. But much like the previous Siege Voyager, this Springer unfortunately is still a parts former, so we are once again going to want to whack out this specific blade, which is designed to fully transform itself into a brand new set of propeller blades. Once you angle those bad boys there outwards, we can then take a hold of these components and fold these here in opposite directions to each other until the blade is looking something along the lines of this. And then for one final step, we are just going to smack this here into the top of Springer's helicopter mode until now he is fully transformed to annihilate those Decepticons on that battlefield. Commanding his way into the battlefield of Autobot City, now we have Springer fully transformed into his Cybertronian helicopter mode. And in his defense, he still does look pretty decent, but I'm gonna be real with you guys, there are barely any changes here in comparison to the Voyager class release. When you kind of begin to consider the price difference, I really think Hasbro should have pulled out all of the stops in making this as accurate as it possibly could be. So, for example, whilst the front end definitely does look awesome, the wings I find to be way too small. I definitely remember Springer in the original G1 show, this guy packing some pretty big intakes on either side. The biggest upgrade overall would definitely have to be that brand new propeller blade, which can spin like an absolute mother. So this guy should have no issues in landing to assist the Autobots in their battle. But as we spin him here to the side, I really can't say that I'm crazy when it comes here to the entire backside. Unlike the actual animation model, for some strange reason, they've only decided to paint the front part in green, but not this middle part. I definitely remember this being completely coated when it came around to that animation model, and to be honest, I'm just not a big fan in general of this still retaining the same leg design as that Transformers Siege Voyager class, especially as we are now paying the leader class price point. But overall, it definitely isn't a bad looking helicopter mode, but for a Studio Series 86 release, I definitely think could have been better. In his defense though, he looks pretty mighty once fully weaponized front side to back with all of those accessories, again including that pretty awesome catapult missile. Landing in for some helicopter mode comparisons, we once again have the Transformers Siege Springer, and unfortunately this is definitely the mode which has the least amount of changes. As we spin these here to the side, really and truly guys, upon first glance, they appear to be only mere repaints of each other. It really is such a shame that the only big upgrade this time around the new Studio Series version has would be a slightly modified propeller blade, which when you consider the price difference, honestly I think is pathetic, because I'm gonna be real guys, when it comes here to the helicopter mode, this is most definitely slacking. Here is how he sizes up alongside the Transformers Legacy United Leader Class Sandstorm, which overall I definitely think is more deserving of that leader price point, because at least to myself it seems like they actually tried when it came round to all three of the modes, whereas unfortunately I cannot say the same here for Springer. Next up we have the Transformers Siege Leader Class Astro Train, fully transformed into his shuttle mode. We then have the legend that is the Earthrise Optimus Prime, and when it does come to an overall scaling, I won't lie to you guys, these definitely do appear to be really awesome companion pieces. And then last but by no means least, we are whacking out the Transformers Earthrise Netflix Bumblebee. So as you would expect, a pretty big difference between the two. So, wrapping up on this review for the Transformers Studio Series 86 Leader Class Springer. Overall, the figure looks really good, by far one of the best mainline releases that we've ever seen for this character. I guess what's really killing it for me is that before it, we had the amazing Voyager Class Siege Springer, which when it comes to engineering is more or less identical to this brand new Leader Class version. Whilst there may be a step up when it comes to accuracy and quality, there also is a pretty big step up when it comes to price point, and I'm gonna be honest guys, stacked up against the original Siege version, I just don't think this release here justifies that price point. Had they maybe retooled the legs to better match the animation model, then maybe I would have had a slightly easier time in swallowing that price tag, but as it stands, those additional accessories, whilst are really cool, just ain't cutting it for myself. So, as I've mentioned so many times throughout this video, despite this being an upgrade, for those of you who already own the original Siege Springer, then I would absolutely recommend to stick with that, because when it comes to the price difference, I just don't think this brand new Studio Series version is worth it. I would love to get your guys' thoughts down below. I want to thank you all so much for watching, and until my next review, transform and roll out!